Okay, everyone, welcome back. Welcome back in the new year. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
This is our first Borough Board for the year. So first order of business is the adoption of the January 15, 2015 Borough Board agenda, which you have before you. Motion is to adopt. So move. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Good. Next order of business is the adoption of the December 18, 2014 Borough Board minutes, which you all had a chance to review. And if I'm not mistaken, I didn't get any emails on friendly amendments or anything. So motion to adopt? Second? All in favor? Okay. Alrighty, so we're gonna skip around in the agenda a bit, and we also, when we have a quorum for the One Vanderbilt corridor vote, we're gonna take a pause for that vote, and then we'll just resume the presentation. I think by that time, Councilmember Rodriguez will be here presenting. So whenever that quorum is achieved, we're gonna be able to take a break for that vote. Okay. The first presentation we have is on proposed zoning text amendment on stairwells, presented by Dakota Hendon, the Urban Designer Zoning, New York City Department of City Planning. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, my name is Dakota Hendon. I'm with the Zoning Division at the Department of City Planning. I'm joined today by Helen Gittleson from the Department of Buildings, Technical Affairs, and Chief Farrier from the Fire Department. Today, the Department of City Planning, in collaboration with the Department of Buildings and the Fire Department, is proposing a citywide zoning text amendment to facilitate and make effective additional safety measures that are part of New York City's 2014 Building Code. The safety measures are intended to enhance public safety in new high-rise, non-residential buildings by providing additional exiting capacity for building occupants during emergency situations that require full building evacuation. These safety recommendations resulted from an extensive study by the National Institute of Standards and Technology of the World Trade Center disaster. The report recommended several changes to be incorporated into model building codes. These include decreasing the time it takes to evacuate an entire building in emergency, increasing the ability of first responders to access building occupants, and providing greater redundancy in escape routes to ensure that if one route becomes unavailable, there's still adequate capacity to evacuate the building. These changes were adopted into the New York City Building Code as part of Local Law 141 of 2013, also known as the 2014 New York City Construction Codes. The law stipulates, however, that these safety provisions will only become effective once a text amendment is approved to exempt that space that is occupied by these features from counting towards zoning floor area. The proposed text amendment consists of an amendment to Section 1210 definitions of the New York City zoning resolution to exempt floor space that is occupied by these additional safety measures from counting towards zoning floor area. These safety measures are required for all new non-residential buildings that are greater than 420 feet in height. Predominantly residential and fully residential buildings are not subject to the additional requirements and are not affected by this text amendment. Two common questions are often asked regarding the applicability of this amendment. The first is, why are residential buildings not included? There are several reasons why residential buildings are not included in this amendment. The first is the building code generally has more stringent egress requirements for non-residential buildings. This is mostly because of the higher density of occupants per floor. Additionally, as part of the 2008 New York City Building Code, changes were made to increase the width of stairwells in residential buildings by 8 inches. A similar text amendment was approved at that time as well. The other question that often comes up is, why do these requirements kick in at 420 feet? The height threshold originates from the International Building Code, as do most requirements of the New York City Building Code. International Code Council has an open and collaborative code writing process that is based on a consensus-based decision process. After extensive study and input from numerous stakeholders, 420 feet was determined to be the appropriate height, and it coincides with several other requirements in the International Building Code. So it's not just for this requirement. This amendment will affect a small amount of buildings. An examination of DOB records shows that from 1997 to 2014, only 29 non-residential buildings exceeding 420 feet were constructed, which is equivalent to less than 2 buildings per year. Buildings of this size are typically found in zoning districts without set height limits that allow a floor area ratio of greater than 10. These districts can be found in Midtown and downtown Manhattan, downtown Brooklyn, and portions of Long Island City and Queens. Briefly summarized, Building Code Section 403.5.2 is a new provision requiring one of the following options be incorporated into the design of all new non-residential buildings greater than 420 feet. You can construct all passenger elevators in the building as occupant self-evacuation type. These are different than your typical elevators because they are designed to work in an emergency. Occupant evacuation elevators, or OEEs, are specifically designed to do such. They include special safety features that permit the use of the elevator during a fire or similar emergency. These features include connection to emergency standby power, fire-rated electrical connections, emergency communications, special lobby dimensions, and wheelchair access. The second option is you can increase the required width of all emergency exit stairs by 25%, as well as providing all your elevators as occupant self-evacuation type, with a certain number of them capable of being run by standby power. This is based on an egress analysis that's performed by the applicant. The third option, which is the sort of place where the name of this text amendment comes from, which is an additional stair. You can provide one more stair than would otherwise be required. So if you're typically required 2 stairs, you'll have to provide a third. The above requirements that I've just talked about resulted from mediation that included all stakeholders from both the egress and elevator technical committees and are based on those adopted in International Building Code. In order to determine the effect of the proposal, the department, working closely with the Department of Buildings, studied several different building types and sizes. Depending on the design option selected from the building code requirements, the reconfiguration of total net floor area, I'm on the wrong page. Double-sided is probably not the best way to go. Depending on the design option selected from the building code requirements, the buildings could result in they end up being slightly bulkier, either with slightly larger floor plates or slightly increased height. To understand the net effect of this change, the department studied building types most likely to be affected by the proposed amendment. Of the 29 buildings that were built in the last 15 years, 18 are office, 10 are hotel, and 1 is a hospital. Therefore, office and hotels are the primary focus of our analysis. The diagram indicates the typical fire safety exit stairways found in high-rise office and hotel developments. It illustrates the amount of floor space taken up by additional safety exit stair. The difference in size between office and hotel is found because of the different typical floor-to-floor heights. So for an additional stairway in an office, it's about 184 square feet per floor. In a hotel, 141 square feet per floor. And the 25% additional width results in 52 or 43 respectively per stairwell. Buildings with small footprints have a tight building core, and usually a small number of elevators are adequate to serve the building occupants. Because of the limited amount of square feet per floor, the designers of such buildings typically seek to maximize the amount of usable square footage. The provision of all occupant self-evacuation elevators is the most likely option for these buildings because they use the least amount of floor area. And therefore, the smaller floor plate buildings would typically choose scenario 1. There's no floor area exemption for this option because it's just using the elevators that exist currently. However, even on a small footprint office building small hotel building shown here, even the maximum floor area deduction associated with the additional stairwell results in less than 3/4 of an additional floor. By contrast, high-rise buildings with medium and large floor plates need significantly more elevators to efficiently transport the building occupants. Therefore, the added cost for occupant evacuation elevators is greatly multiplied, and the provision of backup power for all the elevators is more expensive as well. Overall, development sites with larger floor plates allow the project designer a greater amount of design flexibility. The designers of these buildings will most likely choose either 25% wider stairways with OEEs or the additional exit stairway. The medium floor plate building shown typical of office building, or small for an office building, typical of office buildings, results in about one half and 3/4 of an additional story depending on the option that you select. The larger floor plate buildings, which are pretty much exclusively office buildings, will most likely choose the additional stair because of the large efficiency of this floor plate size. However, the resulting exempted square footage results in actually less of a story because of the large size of that floor plate at the top of the building. In conclusion, the principal effects of the proposed text amendment would be the effectuation of improved safety requirements in new high-rise non-residential buildings. These requirements have been adopted by the International Building Code as well as several major cities across the country and resulted from lessons learned in our very own city. Take any questions.
Questions?
Yes. Excuse me.
Yes.
On the backup redundant system for the elevators in the event of a fire, you said that there would be a backup. Where would that be located?
The emergency standby power?
Yeah,
Most likely either on the roof or in the cellar. Probably on the roof in the case of a generator. The all occupant evacuation elevators require all of them to be able to be run by standby power, and the 25% additional is the number of elevators that are required to run on standby power is based on an egress analysis.
Okay, and the reason that I asked that, because since Sandy, one of the things we're talking about not doing is locating these redundant backup systems in the basement because of flooding. Some people are now talking about, rooftop. So I just wanted to know where they would be located, what type generators, exactly. I think we should know that, whether it be diesel, fuel, and where the
And
location
Helen
is.
from the Department of Buildings might be able to.
If I could address some of your concerns, the requirements for meeting emergency power requirements are not just for this provision, but all emergency power provisions, and there is a list of them in the building code. And they're not necessarily all grouped together and put in the basement or the roof. Really, right now, and I could get back to you on the requirements for this from the new building code, but the placement of the fuel source is not addressed, is not affected by this requirement. But I can get you in
Okay.
other words, whatever buildings have to comply with in the new code for emergency power, whether this provision is approved or not, is in effect. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, well, I'd like to get some information
Sure,
on that
I can-
because.
If you give me your card, I can send you the new code provisions which go into effect. This provision won't go into effect until either the latter of the date when this zoning code provision goes into effect, or June 30th, because it was
Okay.
18 months from the date of enactment from the new code. Sort of hard to follow, but that's the requirements of it. The rest of the building code provisions are in effect and went into effect on December 30th.
Okay.
Okay? But
I'll
I'll
touch
take
base
your
with you.
card and,
Given the lessons that we learned from Sandy, that's an information we'd like to share with all the chairs.
Sure.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
can provide that
Absolutely.
information. And I want to remind everyone, this does serve as a public hearing, so everyone can comment and any question. I'll just community the chairs. I think I saw Christina take that, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You had your hand up?
So essentially, this amendment is to make sure that the developers make as much money or more than they were making before.
No, this is essentially a new requirement that
Now,
occupies.
the new requirement is okay, but we don't have to give in for more density for that. So the whole thing, the new requirement is already in the building code, but
No.
it says,
No, so
No.
the requirement is becomes effective only at such time that we approve the text amendment, because what it does is make the property whole. There's no additional usable square footage at all. The amount of space occupied by the additional safety measure is not going to count towards your zoning floor area. So you are not getting more floor area than you had previously.
no, but you're not getting less either. You should be making some sacrifice for safety, general safety. I don't see the point of, if there is a new rule, everybody hurts, and the developer should be hurt, especially when we are talking about buildings which are above, 420 feet. I mean, we're not going to cry for that. So it seems to me that we are overly concerned with compensating developers for safety measures. That's my point.
This went through an extensive mediation process, so.
I'm sure, I'm just telling you my opinion about how we approach developers above. For 29 buildings, we are making this whole thing. They could have lost one floor without anybody crying.
They also have to go through the actual added expense of adding these safety requirements,
And that's
which
okay,
are not being compensated,
I'm not
so-
going to cry for them either. So that's,
Well, but I just wanna be clear that the issue on the table is not whether only to provide the zoning text amendment. It's the additional safety measures for high-rise buildings will not go into effect unless this zoning text.
I do understand that, and that,
I just,
and that
that's
tells
fine.
me that we have caved long time ago and are being held hostage. For all the safety amendment, because 29 towers are not getting one more floor. That is a little, to me, very upsetting.
Hi, Chair, Community Board 1, I know you presented to our planning committee meeting on Monday, and this all originated because of the terrorist attacks on the two World Trade Centers down here in Community Board 1. And having sat through numerous meetings on safety and evacuation, increasing the width of the stairwell so the people evacuating the building have a safe place to go is very important. And that was something that they ended up incorporating at 7 World Trade and 1 World Trade. The planning committee passed unanimously the zoning text change on Monday night. Goes to the full board later this month.
Sandra?
When the representative from Board 12 was actually speaking, it jostled something in my memory. Not so much from a buildings perspective, but more from a fire department perspective. Perhaps the chief will be able to answer this. I seem to recall that there was a discussion about changing the elevation limits on where combustible fuels might actually be stored from a fire suppression point of view. I don't know if that actually has happened in the past few years or if that's still a discussion that's going on. Does anyone recall?
Well, hello everybody, I'm Ed Ferrier from the fire department.
Morning.
I think what you're doing is you're addressing the fuel. They had diesel fuel on 7 World Trade Center and OEM, which was part of the problem. And they actually stored it, Helen correctly, they had it, it was a way of doing it inside the piping. They ran on the floors, and I believe that that's been addressed in the 2008 code.
Okay.
So that's previously been addressed.
Okay, so the fire department, I guess, feels that the current code is up to par in terms
Oh
of
yeah,
fire
well, you know,
suppression.
one of the good things about the way DOB is doing this process, all the stakeholders are involved in it. And the fire department has been involved in it ever since the existing code now,
Okay.
so.
And I just wanna say that it's not, diesel is only one fuel that is used for emergency power. There are many other kinds of improvements going on. Some are battery cells, some are solar battery cells, and there's a whole study. It's not just the diesel fuel, which was part of the storage problem, which can raise many issues. So the building construction sciences is evolving as we speak for different kinds of technologies for emergency and standby power.
Thank you.
Any other questions? On the Stillwater Amendment, any other questions, comments? I guess we have to discuss in terms of this, you planning to bring it before board for a vote? Are many of you mentioned Community Board 1 already voted on it?
We've passed the planning committee meeting on Monday, goes to the full board on Monday, January 26th.
And other community boards have it before their agenda this month?
We
We
passed
already-
this last night unanimously.
Okay.
As did we.
Next, we're still waiting, I guess I'll be alerted to when we have quorum. So we can move to presentations from community board chairs, and then we could interrupt those presentations once we have quorum for the vote. We could begin with community board 1.
Hi, good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to bring everyone's attention to the CDBG-DR funding from the United States Department of HUD and Urban Development and their proposed action plan amendment to the city's action. the last tranche of $4.2 billion was announced on Friday, December 18th. Tonight is a public hearing. We're not sure whether the public will be able to comment. I just learned from Gigi at the last two, the public were not allowed to comment at the public hearing. So if any of the elected officials here can make sure that the public has the opportunity to comment at tonight's public hearing on $1 billion, that would be really helpful. We found out recently that New York City EDC clawed back $18 million that was supposed to be allocated in our area, called the Game Changer. We have been consistently told since it had been allocated back in 2013 that it would be allocated in our neighborhood. It is not going to be allocated in CV1. Out of the entire $4.2 billion that has been allocated, roughly, the estimates from the cities, maybe 10 million has been allocated in the CV1 district to small businesses and Build It Back programs. In this last tranche of $1 billion, they're only allocating $1.5 million out of the almost $1 billion for a feasibility study. So it would go from Brooklyn Bridge to the Battery Maritime building. It does not include the battery. It does not include the Hudson River. We're very upset, and we hope that something can be done. That's item one. We have consistently advocated for storm resiliency in our budget this year. It was item number 2 on capital expenses for short-term to medium-term. Nothing has been done by the city to address those concerns. And it was also supporting the implementation of the Big U downtown. The second item in our district has been the CV1 Special Landmarks Committee meeting. We had the second of 2. We unanimously passed a resolution on Monday, January 5th on 10 different items. It will go to the full board on Monday, January 27th. The third item is with Councilmember Chin. Community Board 1 supported the New York City resolution calling upon the United States Congress to pass and the President to design the James Zadroga Health and Compensation Reauthorization Act. That's something Community Board 1 has worked very closely with Councilmember Chin on. And at the press conference, we had the father of James Zadroga, the NYP detective, who was the first person who died, and it was around the anniversary of his death. And the last item that I wanted to report on was that the forum that you had on tracking constituent issues is very important. And we really welcome this initiative since we know that we can improve in this area in Community Board 1. And last item, we're going to be posting online shortly the stabilized housing guide that we put a lot of effort into.
Thank you for that. Community Board 2, Tony?
Yes, so 2 things trending in Community Board 2. One is people may have heard of Pier 55. We had Pier 54, which is a pier that was literally collapsing into the river and had to be closed down. Fairly incredible gift was given or offered to the Hudson River Park Trust for the reconstruction of it and the creation of a fairly fabulous performance center on this newly constructed pier that will still be part of the park. It's a gift of $130 million from Diller and von Furstenberg, and it has tremendous possibilities for that area and for the park. The unfortunate part about it is that because of the way that things like this are approved as part of the Hudson River Park Act, this kind of snuck up on us, and in a period of less than 60 days, it's going through its review process and probably will be properly approved, but without the ability to really look at the details and watch out for some of the significant concerns, because the contract is a very complicated contract between the trust and the foundation that will continue to operate it, and it basically gives over this property to that private entity with very little control over how much time it will not be available to the public, how it will be available to the public, the democracy of the whole process. On the other hand, it is really extraordinarily well thought out entity and contribution to all, I think all of Manhattan and the city. The other thing is, another thing that snuck up on us, and we might say that we were asleep at the wheel, is a kind of transformation that's been occurring in Soho, particularly on Broadway and then reaching out from Broadway. I'm sure people go to to Broadway sometimes and see the growth of kind of a shopping mall situation all the way from, mostly from Houston Street to Canal Street, and immensely crowded street situations and bigger and bigger stores. And the zoning in Soho is unusual zoning. It's still manufacturing zoning, and it does have a restriction on 10,000 square foot stores. But somehow, one after the other, these stores find an exception to it. So we get these multiple floor stores that are bringing bigger and bigger crowds, and frankly, we don't even really have an understanding of how it happens. There seem to be so many loopholes, and Department of Buildings is not very transparent about how they make decisions, and we're belatedly trying to catch up and see if we can put the brakes on.
Community Board 3?
Sure, thank you. We are very excited because the Lower East Side has been opposing a proposal for charter schools, additional Eva Motzkowitz charter schools in the Lower East Side, and it has been an interesting process because originally they were interested and filed for interest in CEC 2, and then suddenly they wanted to move into CEC 1, and there was they tried to say that the review process in CEC 2 would have been substantial, even though they completely shift their neighborhood. And I think the CEC and the community organized immensely around that effort, and my understanding is that DOE basically told them that there's no space for them there, and so we are very excited that is the case. And then secondly, as of yesterday, I believe, we have the first and youngest 16-year-old community board member on CB3. And actually is the daughter of a former CB3 board chair, so she probably knows more about community boards and has been coming to community board meetings since she was in utero, so we're very excited to have her and expect great things.
She's a little scary.
Darby's daughter.
And Gigi, did you want to talk about the big U?
Well, I was gonna default to Sandra. We're gonna take turns reporting on the big U, so I don't steal the big U thunder each time.
Community Board 4?
Yes, pretty quiet on the west side. A new situation has emerged, and I don't know whether other people have seen it, but in affordable housing, in 80/20 programs, in brand new buildings, it seems that in some way, the heating is provided through pumping the heat from the central system into the apartment, and the affordable tenant have to pay for the electricity bill to do the pumping. And that amounts to an enormous amount of money every month, because Con Edison consider that not the heating system, but an adjunct to the heating system, and therefore charge the tenant instead of charging the building. And
which building is this, Gotham West, or which building is
no,
this?
it's on 37th Street between 37. It's a TF Cornerstone building. I mean, that's where the issue emerged from, but I presume. So many people may be just paying, we're talking about very large amount, I mean, we're talking about $300 a month during the winter to bring in that heat. And it would be helpful to explore with Con Ed whether we can have a general statement that they shouldn't be paying that. So, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know if it's
Right.
appropriate
Go
for
ahead, no,
questions,
this
but
is-
are these
this is
the
on.
tenants? Are they rent stabilized? Are they market rate tenants? What's the status of the tenants in the building?
They are inclusionary 80/20.
Self-financed, really.
Yeah, this is private buildings which have 20% affordable, part of the deal, and
And heat and electricity are part of the.
heat is supposed, not electricity, but heat is
Heat is
supposed,
in.
the apartment heated is supposed to be provided but then in order to get the heat,
yeah, that
you have
doesn't
to
sound right
pay.
at all.
Something really wrong. Dan and I will work on that.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
there's
terrible.
something really wrong.
Have you heard of
and-
it? Has anybody heard of that anywhere else, or is this just
No,
an
that
odd-
was
an
the
odd-
first time, and this gentleman came and said, you know, he has been fighting with Con Ed for months,
So it's
months.
steam, and it's steam heat? Yeah, what? I mean,
You
steam
know-
heat
It
just
must be
moves
a-
kind of on
No,
its
no,
own.
no, it's not
It must
steam
be a
heat.
heat
Oh, it's,
pump.
oh, it's
It's
like
a
ele-
heat pump.
I think it's the
Oh, a
heat
heat
pump.
Yeah,
Oh.
see, coming from the south,
Right.
we use heat pumps.
Right.
But those are in private homes, so it's probably that same sort of
It's the
system.
same system.
And it runs
And
on
apparently
electricity.
some tenants do not
That's
have
what it
to
is.
use the heat
Probably a
pump
heat
and
pump.
some do, so they don't all pay the same amount.
Okay.
It's very
We should
bizarre.
look at that. That's crazy.
Very
Forces it
bizarre.
out, but the electricity
Okay,
runs it.
so that's,
So the more heat you use, the
And we need
more.
Ward 5.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, the first thing is, we're very excited about today's resolution. It is the culmination of, I guess, almost, it's over 3 years' work in 2 different steps, as you all know. And our board, along with Board 6, voted unanimously on the resolution that we passed that was very, very similar to the resolution that's before us today. And I really want to thank Board 6 in particular for the work that they provided and helped us. It was not only a pleasure, but so helpful to have them working with us, because this has been as I said, a 3-year project. And also Board 1, we had Catherine and Michael Levine that provided a tremendous amount of expertise and help along the way. So I'd like to give thanks to them as well, not to mention Gail and Dan, who have really guided us through this. And we thank you so much for your involvement and help along in this. As you know, there's a second phase, which is the steering committee that's held kind of on a monthly basis now. It is made up of various interested and interested parties and stakeholders, dealing with the rest of the plan for East Midtown. We have one real, what I would call important issue that we're dealing with. We have sent a letter, it has to do with pedestrian plazas, of which I think Community Board 5, because of where we're located, I think we have maybe the largest number of pedestrian plazas, certainly the largest number with the problems that I'd like Clayton to describe for everyone today, and particularly for Gail, because we've sent you a letter, Gail, along with the mayor and the speaker, because we're having such concerns. This is kind of a monumental one, and Clayton is not only our vice chair, but he's the chair of the Parks Committee, and we're calling it Parks and Pedestrian Plazas now. And so I'd like him to give you the gory details so that you're prepared for what's coming, okay?
Thank you. I'll be succinct. I'm Clayton Smith. We came to learn about a proposed event which is happening on February 12th for the NBA All-Star Kickoff Weekend. It is to feature an unidentified A-list pop musician and professional athletes. A 60-foot wide steel stage will be erected on top of the Flatiron North Pedestrian Plaza over an active fire hydrant. 23rd Street will be closed, Broadway and Fifth Avenue will be closed, 24th, 25th, and 26th Streets will be closed from Madison Avenue to 6th Avenue. They anticipate 10,000 attendees for a pedestrian plaza whose occupancy is, I believe, 350. There will be 6 audio, video, and lighting towers erected from 23rd to 26th Streets. There will be 24/7 construction for a period of 4 days, beginning on February 10th. Since the time of our letter that we sent to the mayor and to the borough president and to the speaker, we have learned that they have extended that schedule by a day, so we're now looking at 5 days of active overnights in a very dense residential and, of course, commercial neighborhood. Our committee unanimously found that this event was grossly inappropriate in any degree, and it speaks to our larger and broader concerns for which we've been on record since 2009, advocating for an appropriate management of pedestrian plazas in our district and in the entire city. The biggest problem that we've identified is that although DOT is the agency of record for the pedestrian plaza network, And is the agency legally responsible for their oversight? They have nothing to do with the management and administration of them. That instead goes to the Street Activity Permit Office, SAPO, a city agency who has no mandate to consider public benefit in their determinations. Basically, it's a first come, first serve event application process. We have been questioning this for years. In 2013, we unanimously opposed a ULURP application that was meant to extend the pedestrian plaza network because our calls for efficient, sensible, reasonable mechanisms to ensure proper oversight and administration of these public spaces has never been addressed. We've called for a working group to look at these issues and to answer questions such as, every other city agency, as a matter of course, provides public notification for anything regarding impact on public space. Why is the pedestrian plaza network immune to this requirement? Community boards have no review of anything that happens in our pedestrian plazas. The only reason we knew about this was because the Flatiron Bid, our very supportive allies in our district, frankly put pressure on SAPO to notify us. That notification came in the form of a 2-minute phone call. If it weren't for that phone call, I wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't even know this event was happening. It would just happen. So we're very fed up with these completely out of scale commercial events being unilaterally placed in passive use spaces that were created for completely different reasons. And we think it's highly, highly time to address a dysfunction in, well, I would call it a system, but there really isn't a system to speak of.
It seems like it started in Times Square, and now it's spreading.
That's right. And in Times Square, the bar is much higher because, of course,
Non-residential.
it's non-residential and it's a commercial area.
But
And
Fashion Week.
Community board, you have had concerns in the past, though, even with Times Square. So I think this is, I mean, there's plenty of other places to do it. I can think of Javits, I can think of Central Park, I can think of lots of places.
this event was actually meant originally to happen in Times Square. And one of the questions in our letter was, why did you move it?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, it almost does sound like the New Year's Eve
Yeah.
size of
And
event.
it's free, so there could be more than 10,000 people showing up.
Particularly if somebody finds out who the star is.
Right.
Yes.
Then you're in deep trouble.
Right.
It's gonna be more than 10,000 people. It's definitely gonna be more.
The board of the Flatiron Bid did express unanimous concern in letters to all the various entities. We also got letters of opposition from the 26th Street Resident Association, all kinds of small businesses and residents. That has had no impact.
So Gail, we did not have, I mean, we are not supposed to weigh in on this. I mean, there's no mechanism, as Clayton said, but we wrote the letter regardless. We wrote it to the mayor, the speaker, and yourself, because of the magnitude and the way it's just spreading
Well, we did
uncontrolled.
meet early on with Staple and we got nowhere, just generally, because, Times Square, I know it's a non-residential area, but people have that concern. Even the bid is that concern.
Right.
So we were able to get nowhere.
But
So I think this is a even more egregious situation.
it's obviously it's not just a Times Square. Like the meatpacking district, we have
No,
had
absolutely.
major issues there where on a stamp they are putting something 3 times bigger, and it's really very annoying.
No, I mean, I'm very familiar with the issue. It's-
And we have similar concern in CV4 on the piers, where they are scheduling major concert and major events on the piers. And what happens is as people are leaving the piers for those major events, they are trampling completely the park. And so this is like a double cost.
The pier is sponsored by the, pier event is sponsored by the park, right?
Or EDC. EDC has a hand in doing that. And we have major complaints about noise, major complaints about all of that.
If I may, sorry, one quick
No,
thing.
go
It's-
ahead.
There are also pedestrian plazas, other parts of our city who would crave commercial events that brought in revenue. So, it's not just about impact of inappropriate events, it's also about the administration of the system. And what we're missing is mechanisms. So it's not just about getting SAPO to back off, it's about putting mechanisms in place to ensure that there's proper public review of anything that happens.
Right. I know why they don't want review.
Okay, thank you for that report.
Thank you.
We're gonna pause on community board chair reports and break to a resolution vote on 1 Vanderbilt, and then we're gonna have our Councilmember Rodriguez, Chair of the Transportation Committee, give us a briefing, and then we'll resume community board chair reports. So now, if we have any questions on one Vanderbilt, we have a general counsel, Jim Curtis, who can answer them.
Like my family, we've been working very hard on this.
Yeah, well, I just wanna say, just so we're clear, and then Dan can speak also, is that I do wanna thank Vicky for her kind words, but much of the credit goes to Dan Garodnick. And, so we have the obviously larger discussion of East Midtown taking place. At the same time, One Vanderbilt is, on the agenda for today. I think we all know, and you can have specific questions if you want. It's a large building that's gonna go up next to the Grand Central, and it is a building that will have a lot of amenities, I think, in terms of the subway and spacing for people to rest in, and a open space, which hopefully will not turn into what you just described. Personally, off the record, the costume characters, could be anything, but if it's well managed, then I think the business improvement district will help, and I have great confidence in the Grand Central bid, but that's another story. But all of these issues do add up in the sense that, what we're suggesting is a resolution that we would say it's a good idea, but we have some other concerns, and some of them are who's gonna manage the open space, now that you should mention it, who's gonna manage the indoor space in the large building where we're gonna have, people waiting and hopefully bathrooms, but who's gonna manage that, and how really, environmentally, great is this building going to be, because it has to set the standard for others. So we simply have some questions. I know that the community board has some questions also. So we're also trying to be respectful of those individuals. So we're suggesting that there are a no with some concerns, as you can see. However, we hope to work, and we will be working with the agencies. I think there's a real understanding that they need to be addressed. And we had an excellent meeting with Carl Weisbrod yesterday to go over some of these issues. But I'm just trying to tell you that even, thanks to this amazing staff and to all of you, I think all of these sort of details need to be addressed, and then we can move forward. Dan Garodnick, please, floor is yours.
So, first of all, I want to thank you, Gail, for putting forth a very thoughtful resolution here. The recent history of this whole issue, everybody will recall that there was the broader East Midtown rezoning, which was withdrawn by the Bloomberg administration after many of us raised very strong objections to the fact that there was a lot of push to resolve the question quickly before the end of the last administration without a lot of great detailed thought in the plan, the proposal. And it was accompanied with a fair amount of as-of-right development without, real thinking about infrastructure, public realm, etc. That plan was withdrawn, and we now have this two-part process. Right? We have the Vanderbilt process, and then we have the broader process that Gail and Vicki both alluded to. We're going to be thinking about, more thoughtfully the big questions about East Midtown. The part one, the one that we're considering in this resolution today, the best part about this is that every application that would come on the Vanderbilt corridor goes through a full ULURP process, which in my mind eliminated a number of the big picture issues that I had with the prior rezoning, because the public, community boards, borough president, me, everybody gets a chance to weigh in and evaluate each application that comes before us. There were no situations where the city was pricing air rights at $250 a square foot. It was a cleaner and crisper proposal, while leaving Gail and I and the steering committee the hard work of figuring out the much more complicated questions of what to do with the rest of East Midtown. So fundamentally, I think that the concept here is the right concept. The resolution is also, I think, the right issues to be identifying as we think about how to move forward on this issue in the borough president's recommendations and also in the council's ultimate vote. The questions about how to deal with public access and public space, sustainability requirements, how exactly you define what should entitle somebody to an up to 30 FAR building in exchange for infrastructure improvements that they're proposing. Those are the right questions. So I think that the borough president's resolution does that. Because of the depth of my involvement in this issue, I'm going to abstain on this resolution, but I think it is the right thing and the right issues for us to be identifying, and I think it is the right path for the borough president to have proposed here. So I thank you, Gail, for that, and Vicki, I thank you for what you said, and I think that we are very much on the right path, both little picture here and big picture on the greater East Midtown rezoning, to be able to get to a good result for the public and to do it in a very thoughtful way. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Boards 5 or 6, you want to add anything?
I just want to say yay.
Yeah, I really want to just thank council member, the borough president, Vicki and Lola. I mean, it was a remarkable team, and we had so many wonderful people from boards 1, boards 5, and board 6 put this together, and it really exemplifies what public engagement should be, in my opinion. So,
Not to sound gushy, but it really was a wonderful experience to work so closely with 2 other boards. It was really.
Good. All right, so I guess we want to, anything else anybody wants to add? Just so it's clear, just the 2 boards voting and the members of the city council.
Right, and this is a public hearing, because we do land use items at public hearings, so if anyone from the public would like to speak.
Or anybody else.
Yes, good morning, members of the board.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, good morning, members of the board. My name is Peter Lempen. I'm the representative from the Grand Central Partnership, of partner organization of the Coalition for a Better Grand Central. We formed our organization with the sole purpose of preserving New York City's status as a global economic capital. The Midtown Central Business District is critical to achieving this goal, and no place in Midtown is more important than Midtown East and the area surrounding Grand Central Terminal, one of the region's most vital transportation hubs. Our coalition represents a wide variety of stakeholders, including business, real estate, and labor leaders, who understand that to ensure the city's economic vitality, we need to bring critical transit and infrastructure improvements to Midtown East. Our organization's members have invested billions of dollars to upgrade and restore Midtown office buildings, provide thousands of well-paying construction and service jobs, and work directly with Fortune 500 businesses to keep and grow employment opportunities for New Yorkers. We believe that building the One Vanderbilt Tower, which invests $210 million in public transportation and infrastructure improvements to ease commuter congestion around Grand Central Terminal, will pave the way towards modernizing our aging transit infrastructure in Midtown East. So we urge you today to issue a recommendation approving the One Vanderbilt Special Permit ULURP application and the city's Vanderbilt Corridor rezoning plan. These initiatives will help revolutionize Midtown East, preserve Manhattan as a world-class destination for business, and create thousands of new jobs for New Yorkers from across the city. This is exactly the type of development our city needs to grow and strengthen the local economy.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your efforts on the task force too.
Councilmember.
Yes.
The language makes reference to landmarks selling development rights as a way to bolster their own finances. What are the landmarks that might benefit from this, and how much they might reap?
So in the, if I may, Gail, in the Vanderbilt rezoning, Grand Central has air rights that has the opportunity to sell to these buildings, and it gives the option for a development team to either opt to buy air rights or to do infrastructure improvements consistent with what the public demands in exchange for density bonuses. In the situation of One Vanderbilt, they have opted to, I should also say, the developer, SL Green, has decided to do both. Transfer air rights that they happen to own in a landmark building at Cipriani, across the street, so there's one additional landmark I forgot to mention. It's a small amount of their bonus. And also to do significant infrastructure improvements in and around Grand Central to earn their density bonus. And it has been cited as a value. We don't generally focus on the dollar amount because the dollar amount could change, the cost could go up for this, but the value, approximate value of what they're proposing to is about $210 million in infrastructure improvements, which would need to be delivered before the building is occupied.
And the owner of the Grand Central air rights is not the MTA, right?
It's not the MTA anymore. No, it's not. It's
private.
privately owned. Exactly.
And they will be able, I don't know what's gonna happen with the other buildings in the area. There's an MTA building, there's a hotel, those are all within the area.
The MTA
and
moved.
who knows what will happen with them, but they will have to come back to the community.
Hasn't the MTA already moved downtown?
MTA, I don't know if they will, but they're selling their building, I think they're.
That's why they're selling the building.
Yeah, they're selling the building. So there will be other opportunities for the Argent.
They did move down, at least part of their offices moved down to Bowling Green.
Yeah,
I was just curious to know how many air rights Grand Central has. Has
How
there
many
been?
air rights Grand Central has, I don't know.
The total number.
Yeah.
It's
No?
not. It's.
It's a little bit over 1 million square feet
It
that's
was right.
unsold.
Okay.
They have 1 million
1.1
left.
or 1.2.
Between 1 and 2 million?
I think it's closer to 1.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
So each site that Gail was mentioning, anything on the Vanderbilt corridor between 42nd and 47th Street, should they decide to take advantage of a rezoning to the extent that this passes, they would have the opportunity to either buy from Landmark air rights, or they would have the ability to choose to go to do the infrastructure route. It is an option that exists.
Any other questions?
Okay, so the resolution to be voted on is a resolution recommending conditional disapproval of the application for actions relating to development of 1 Vanderbilt Avenue, the proposal text amendment creating a Vanderbilt corridor, and the city map amendment to designate a block of Vanderbilt Avenue between East 42nd Street and East 43rd Street a public place, unless unresolved issues are addressed. Roll call vote. Borough President Brewer,
Yes?
Councilmember Chin,
I'd like to explain my vote briefly. I have great reservation about voting on a land use item that before it has come to the council and the borough president. And I don't think, I don't like voting on an item before the local council member has an opportunity to really do review, to negotiate on this item. And since in the council, I mean, it's generally, we do defer to the local council member for their insight, and so that it will really help us to review the item. But I also acknowledge that when I was, talking to the borough president's office, it's in the charter. I don't know why that we have to do this before. I mean, I've never experienced this, because every time an item that has come to the borough board is something we have already voted on in the council. So, and I know, and I heard that, the local council member is abstaining. But I also heard that if I abstain, then you might not have a quorum, and lose the opportunity to comment on this issue, which is, hearing from the community board, they've spent a lot of time on it, and I don't want this opportunity to be lost. So I am going to vote in favor of the resolution to disapprove unless certain conditions are met, with the understanding that this item will come for full review in the borough president and in the city council, and hopefully that will result in more, significant and favorable improvement to the plan that ultimately I will be able to update my position in the ULURP process in the future. So I will vote yes for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mendes,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Johnson, Councilmember Granick,
Abstain.
Councilmember Kalos, Councilmember Rosenthal,
I, with the same concerns as my colleague, Councilmember Chin. She's just smarter than I am.
Councilmember Levine,
Aye.
Speaker Mark Viverito, Councilmember Dickens, Councilmember Rodriguez,
I would vote aye with the same, following the same information that Margaret gave, knowing that probably later on in the process, after, when we continue conversation with the council, here, the board president, we will have, I leave myself open, to reevaluate, whatever position we take, but I will vote aye.
Thank you.
Chair Barbero,
Vicky?
I'm sorry. I was trying to count the votes already. Definitely yes.
Chair Sharon?
Yes. If I could vote, I'd say yes too.
The resolution passes.
Thank you very much, and we will continue working hard. I want to thank Councilman Rodney and the committee board. Thank you so much.
Next we have a presentation from Councilmember Rodriguez, who's probably very happy on the heels of the great announcement on the incredible decrease in pedestrian fatalities at an all-time record over a century. So next, welcome Councilmember Rodriguez, and thank you for joining.
Thank you. Well, thank you, our great Manhattan Borough President, Gary Brewer, my colleague, and also the public, the representative, the chair of the community board, and all the representatives in the public. You know, having this great opportunity to chair the committee of transportation come also with a lot of responsibility. As everyone know, like now as my role also as a father, and that's why, you know, I have to come late to early event because I have to take my daughter to 2 different schools and then go to my first responsibility. So my approach right now is not only the way how I see the challenges that we face on transportation is not coming only from myself as a council member, but also as a father, having 2 daughters and having a lot of nieces and nephews. It takes me to think every day about how can we address one crisis that we have in the city, which is that the first cause of death for children under 14 is not poverty, is not gun, is no violence, by being hit by car in our streets. And you know, like when we met with the family for say the city street, what we have seen is that there's no ethnicity, there's no social class, is everyone in the same boat. It can be a working class that is crossing the street, having the right to cross in a irresponsible driver if they fail to yield, or someone who didn't make the stop, didn't make the stop in the stop sign, or cross the line that can get rid of the life of someone working class, middle class, upper class, black, white, Asian, or Latino. And those are the faces that we have seen when we had a hearing at the council. So in 2014, the Transportation Committee passed 16 pieces of legislation that have since been enacted by the mayor, covering 3 main areas: Vision Zero, pedestrian safety, professional driver safety, and incentivizing the use of public transit. On Vision Zero, 12 pieces of legislation increasing oversight regarding passenger death and requiring stories on various behaviors and potential policies to decrease a pedestrian death, reduction of the speed limit to 25 miles per hour was a big victory. It required especially transportation alternative, family for Save the Street, the voices of the grassroots movement going to Albany. And then we had a privilege, the honor to be part of that effort to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles per hour, something that we thought that was not possible if we thought about 4 years ago. Vision Zero Town Hall, Department of Transportation initiative, over 50 intersections and corridors were completely revamped to allow for increased safety. I can say that Dykeman and Broadway, those of you who know that intersection, was one of the more dangerous intersections. And for many years, approaching the previous administration, we need to change the light, we need to do some work in the intersection, nothing was done. But suddenly with the new type of relationship that we have, the speaker, president, all of us, we were able to make major work in that particular dangerous intersection. The same thing at 94, 96 from 94 to 97 and West End. Like, you know, when I drive, and that's the first stop that I have to make through that area in my car, it's a completely way of how that those 2 blocks have been redesigned. Very safe for pedestrians, and also make drivers more accountable there. More red lights camera were installed through the city, install 250 speed bumps through our city, create 25 new arterial slow zones, and taxi and limousine initiative included higher penalty for safety, infraction, and accidents. safety honor roll event honoring the safest 2050 drivers among others. After successfully gaining home rule over the citywide speed limit, Mayor de Blasio and the Department of Transportation and all of us, then we enacted a 25 mile per hour. 90% of the streets are affected by that reduction. There, as you know, we started making that reduction in places such as Grand Concourse, Broadway, from 218 to 59th Street was two of those areas where also we reduced the speed limit. But now, in every place in the city where there's another sign indicating that the speed limit, now we know that 25 miles per hour is the speed limit in the whole city. A pedestrian who is hit by a vehicle going 25 miles per hour, as you know, has a 70% chance of escaping severe injury and 88% chance of survival, compared to 47% chance of accident causing severe injury and 20% chance of death. Other pedestrian safety measures enacted involve increase of accessible pedestrian signals, originally proposed by now Borough President Brewer and reintroduced by Councilmember Levine. As you know, this was an important accomplishment, and those of us who were in the council before, we know how hard our at that time Councilmember Gill worked on that one, and Mark Levine, he took into that particular legislation, and now we will increase the APS throughout the city. When it comes to the civil penalty for hit and run drivers, legislation introduced by myself and Brown Bremer, it also increased those penalties, instill civil penalty for drivers who lead to the scene of an accident they have caused. I can tell you that one of my best friends, who was his son was a recent college graduate, crossing Moshulo Parkway in a Christmas holidays like 3 years ago. His father had passed like a few years before, very in his 50s, and this boy, he was like the role model for the other two boys. It was a very tough situation for the family when they heard that in that holiday, in the Christmas day, he was crossing Moshulo Parkway, and suddenly this car hit this boy. And if you look, and I have shared many times, in Fox 5, you can see the video when the driver put his, few hours after he hit this boy, he put his car in fire to get rid of the evidence. And even that happened, the family, it took years and years for his mother to go after. He got a good, a law professor at Columbia that is a good friend of the family, to be working with them. And the only thing that could be negotiated was like a year and 5 months for that driver to be in jail, because the state law does not provide too much teeth to the DA to prosecute those irresponsible drivers. So when we were to increase those penalties, as we have shown over here, we know that money will never, bring anyone, the life of any loved one back. But we're trying to send a message that, it is stop crime when someone hit and run, and especially when the lack of medical service could make a difference someone survive or not. With Vision Zero already making a difference, in 2014, New York City had the lowest among the pedestrian deaths since the figure was first calculated 100 years ago. Caused by Vision Zero, increased enforcement of new and old laws. Somerset for speeding increased by 42%. Somerset for failing to yield for a pedestrian increased by 126%. Also, we've been working with a professional driver safety, which include taxi drivers more than 25 times are more likely to be the victim of homicide on the job than the average workers. you know, I take a lot of heat because I have a lot of livery bases in my district. And I used to be a taxi driver when I was a city cop. So for me, when I've been moving on those legislation, I even got like a big picket line, you know, in front of my office by some of those taxi drivers who they've been coming after me, saying, you know, that Vision Zero is hurting them too much. But for me, I know about they have to be more professional. They should know that being a taxi driver here also comes with a higher level of accountability, because this is not someone that is moving from from point A to point B. This is about drivers who are responsible to move millions of people in a city where we have 8.4 million population and plus more than 53 million of tourists are coming every day. Whoever sits behind a wheel in a taxi driver, they know that they should be more accountable, they should be more professional. We also have a Taxi and Livery Driver Protection Act, which will require the installation of signs in all taxi and livery cars detailing the penalty for assaulting the drivers. We also want to be there for the taxi drivers. As we have a higher expectation from them, we also want to we want to send a message to them so that we will be there to protect, to be there for their safety. Now we are working in modernizing trouble lights. This is a new legislation that we have introduced. We're working on it. We expect the program to be voting very soon, which is like legislation that we hear recently that will allow the city to install more updated technology to alert police when a driver is assaulted. We also been working on incentivizing public transit use. This was like legislation introduced, with also the major sign on coming from my colleague Councilmember Garani, legislation that will require business with 20 or more employees to offer pre-tax community benefits. We think that this is like a great way of how we tell all New Yorkers that they should be able to have those incentives when they use public transportation. Moving to Vision Zero for 2015, we're working on increasing regulations over rapidly developing app base for hire companies such as Uber and Lyft. I'm pretty sure that you have seen in all the news, like Uber is a company that, you know, it's a $40 billion company. We believe in a free market society where everyone who takes a risk, individual or corporation, they should be able to get a good return, but people should be more accountable. So it doesn't make sense that a passenger who pay an average of $15 rate in Brooklyn suddenly find out that he or she now has to pay $94. Or someone who took a taxi at York Avenue and 93rd Street, she was coming to have a play date with my daughter. It was the day of the marathon, but when she tried to get Uber, she was asked that day she was supposed to be paying $95. So even though we know with the marathon there's more congestion, but $94 to go from 93rd Street to Dyckman is too much. So we believe that we have to keep transportation affordable for working class and middle class. We believe that Uber should be more accountable, that as they promising when they started advertising that they are cheaper than yellow and the green and the black, now they're trying to provide service that is basically for the upper class. And we feel that working with the administration and all of us, we will be able to come out with regulation where Uber should have a different formula during the surge price, which is the major challenge that we have. The last place where Uber was shut down was in Colombia. They've been shutting down in other places because, you know, with a $40 billion, you are able to hire the best lobbyists, the best lawyers, the best staff, and they feel that they always can get rid of and come out, establish themselves. It's all about monopolizing transportation, not only in the city, but worldwide. So we are committed to send a message loud and clear that anyone that comes to New York City to do business, they should be subject to the same rule and regulation. And when it comes to transportation, Uber has not been asking for the same regulation as the yellow, the black, and the green card, and that's what we're working right now. Was one of our top priorities in this year. We are working to increasing equity between the yellow, livery, and black car sectors. They are the one hurt the most by Uber. Another area of transportation that are going to be working this year is increasing the quality of our infrastructure, sidewalk, road, and bridges. One LA language that I have introduced for the LA request, and definitely committed to work with our board president here, the community board, my colleague, is the one is calling for possible requiring developer that use city fund or land to provide a percentage of that of funding to improve our infrastructure. We think that when anyone do and benefit for the main rezoning in Midtown, or now we are also having a starting conversation to do a major rezoning in Inwood, which also we will start talking about probably next month. We think that in the formula of benefit, there should be a requirement for developers to contribute a percentage to improve, as I said, a sidewalk, road, bridges, and other area of transportation. I didn't include it here, but one discussion that is, as I know that also we hear, is about the plan Move New York. That's gonna be a great discussion that we will have. It's a discussion to put tolling the bridges, those in the Midtown area, connecting Manhattan with Brooklyn and Queens. The discussion as we are going through right now is different from the congestion price. The difference on the plan Move New York is the idea to use the money of those tolls. What the expectation is that it will generate $1.5 billion. $1 billion going to the MTA, and the $500 million. Some of those money to be used at the local level of our community to improve bridges and tunnels. But there's also a commitment in these conversations that at least some of those money, right now, we are starting conversations saying, we've been saying at least they should be able to put $2 million to each council member or to the community board, where in the formula that will be decided, that money will be decided every year on how to use it on transportation. So it also provides opportunity for the local voices to decide on a particular amount of money. And I believe if we can be able to get the community board, they want to get those $2 million on transportation, then I feel that probably we can continue the conversation. There's gonna be opposition, there's gonna be a good political, item in our agenda. However, if we are able to sit on the table, and I also told those playing in the Move New York that they should have conversation with the community board, probably we even can meet with getting introduced to the chairman. But this is going to be a conversation starting very soon.
Councilmember,
That's correct.
may I ask a quick question about that? Is that just the local community boards that are affected by the bridges and tunnels, or is that all community? Okay.
Well, we are saying all.
Is this gonna be online so that we can share?
You can also go website. Yeah, you already can start looking at it. You could Google Plan Move New York, and they already have a website, so you can start that conversation. But we will bring them to others. So we will connect them with us and others to have that conversation.
When they made a presentation to our board, they didn't discuss that last aspect you are talking about, the trade-off and the return of money to community boards, and I think that would be very helpful, obviously, to have that discussion.
So let's continue.
Yes.
Let's continue that when I will coordinate with our president.
Right.
So, but from my end,
yes.
Again, I've been getting into hot issues like the Uber, the hookah that I want also to be avoiding, not popular in Washington. I'm not popular in Washington, so I know that this is not gonna be a popular issue.
Right.
But I think that if we get into reinvest some of those money in the local community, then we can have this conversation, which is completely different from the other congestion price.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, last time the MTA was here and I raised the concern about money being earmarked, they said that the money, when they get it, it's capital money and they basically do what they want with it. So my concern is there gonna be a written agreement between them that with this surplus money that you talk about, the $500 million, is actually gonna be earmarked for community infrastructure? They're gonna sign an agreement and comply with that?
We're not there yet, George.
We're not there.
No, I'm just throwing that out there.
No, I hear you. I'm
Just
we're
throwing
not
that out
there
there.
yet.
No, we're not there. And the way how I see that for me, this is not capital money.
No, no,
You know, in
right.
the sense about we
Right.
know the difference the capital space.
Yes.
And we want to be sure that conversation continue.
Right.
That we don't limit it to say there's $2 million capital dollars.
We're not,
Yes.
we're not close.
So we're not there, but I just want to share with you that conversation is starting taking place. We will have some briefing at the council. Probably we will have hearing there. And as we move forward, we will work with the board president so that we can be part of this conversation. I'm committed to keep pushing back to as much as possible for them also, not only for us to say we need to fully fund our capital plan for the MTA, but also to be able to raise some $1 million. You know, they say 2 each council member, I saying 3. I started with asking for 4. No, so to see if we can get one. So, also the other thing is about, on the 2015, is connecting isolated communities to our transportation network. It's a big issue, especially
Big
Far
issue.
Rockaway, some places in Bronx, in Brooklyn.
Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
Lower East
Lower
Side.
East Side.
So with the, we want to do better with the rapid buses. And also, we want for the MTA, I made the ask to the MTA, why don't we, working together, have like our 10-year plan, where we can say, let's identify which are the isolated communities. We will be working to connect, let's say 20% of those in a year or 2, 40% another year, so that we can say in a 10-year plan, we will not have any community being isolated from public transportation. So that's, and when it comes to connect isolated community, I'm also looking at airports such as LaGuardia and Kennedy, also to be connected with the train. You know, when the vice president came to LaGuardia, he has said that the LaGuardia was a third world class airport, however, I mean, I was offended because I would like to be in third world, being in Punta Cana right now, but in Santo Domingo, but he said that it makes sense. It is true, but they're making a $4 billion investment.
And no connection.
Renovated, and none of those money
Right.
is included to connect LaGuardia
Right.
with a train.
Yeah, we're
Right.
trying to do it, just so you know,
Oh,
to
good.
keep the Midtown discussion, to try to do something from Grand Central to LaGuardia. That has come up a lot.
So also we want to work 2015 to ensure that the MTA 5-year capital plan is fully funded, as I said. This is very important. Now that we are in transportation, even though I was in that committee before, but now being as the chairman of transportation, we know how shaming is that to know that New York City is not the one leading the best, leading our cities wide competition, having the best transportation system. There's also connected, like London is connected with all the airports. So we feel that we
must-
need to do better, but we also need to continue pushing to be sure that everyone see the benefit of funded for it. We fully funded the 5-year capital plan for the MTA. We also will be working on increasing accessibility in public transit and TLC licensed vehicle. We have a joint hearing this week where we're going to be addressing issue related to accessibility. A joint with a committee of hope and other. And on the vision for 2015, also on the upcoming hearings topic, we have the oversight concerning subway platform, overcrowding and safety. You know, Times Square, when we take it there, as we say, in the MTA they always say, after 9/11, it's only a matter of time when we will be hit by some criminals.
Terrorists.
So the question is, will we be prepared? You know, I always say I fought a lot with the previous administration, I fought a lot with the previous police commissioner, but I gave them credit for keeping our cities safe. And knowing that we cannot have a terrorist attack after 9/11 is a big accomplishment for everyone. But we feel that especially when we take the train, like that can be, and we have been saying in the past, one of the potential targets. So we will have a hearing addressing how safe are we when it comes to being in the platform. For that purpose, but also for the safety of our people committed suicide, jumping in the radar yard too. So we know that there have been discussion in the past about possible ideas on how to improve safety there. So that's going to be one of our hearings. The other one is going to be oversight concerning the Port Authority bus terminal.
Christine will like that one.
Yeah?
I'm there.
Okay. So that one I'm looking to have it in February.
Oh, okay.
And I'm looking to oversight both the one at 42nd, the one in my district too. Again, no, I'm
Very well.
still fighting with them. It was a good deal for the development who was able to get a good deal from the Port Authority. $85 million investment, a lot of money from EB5, which is easy money. You know, they get like EB5 is a formula where an investor who invests $500 from any part of the world, they get the green card. So there are a lot of people for overseas investing here, not because many of them, you know, are looking to stay here, but yeah, because many of them also want to send a child to a school here.
Right.
And that's one of the most motivations. So we feel that with that money they begin developing, been getting, with the good deal that he get from the Port Authority, in the case of the George Washington bus terminal, the community is not benefit. I mean, I inherit that project. If I would be there from the beginning, I would push harder. But it was starting being negotiated by the former council member, and when I took over, there was not much opportunity on introducing a item related from the living wage and other workers protection in that project. But we continue conversation, and that's going to be one of our hearing probably in February, the Port Authority.
I really applaud this. I've never heard such a comprehensive report. The one thing I'm concerned, I would like to do, I would like if we can do this, if we can sit down and talk with you. I don't know if any other community boards feel this way, because I think this is really good. As we continue to make improvements in all the boroughs, and we do it isolated by perhaps coming to Community Board 10, 9, 11, 1, 2, it always has an impact on another area. And so this is what, we're not seeing the big picture sometimes, and I'm not sure if your committee is seeing the big picture as we make improvements here, what does it do here? And it kind of pits us against each other sometimes. So I'm glad we're hearing this report, but I would like to get more involved in what the Transportation Committee is doing, so I can understand it.
Let's do it.
And also the impact of money too. As we increase, someone's paying for this. You know, someone's paying it. You're giving money back to the community, but people are putting money in. So we just need to talk about this. How does this work? You know, again, this is new, first time I'm hearing such a great report, and I really applaud you for this report. But I would like to basically be able to really sit down and talk more in a setting so we can share what's happening in our community, and if you're gonna do something here, how does it affect something in Queens? And when I say here, I mean in Community Board 10, how does it affect something in Queens? How does it affect something on the west side? If you understand? Yeah.
Let's do it. I would say it's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
It's a great suggestion, and I'm committed to put something together following your idea.
Thank you.
Starting from us here, and probably we can include the community. Yes, we will. And one idea that I have also, and probably something that I'm looking to continue to work with you, it is as we have the participatory legislation, I want to start a participatory budget. I want to start a participatory legislation initiative. And in that initiative, I want to start it first with transportation.
Oh.
So the idea is that we can bring lawyers from the council, we can bring a lawyer here from law school, and then we can have a section where also we can hear, especially we can do one first with the chairman of community board, talking about potential legislation that we can introduce on legislation, so that can be the result of a process where we can dedicate like a Saturday afternoon workshop. And we'll be able to say, we produce those 5 legislation related to transportation. This is something that I will.
And that would answer some of your questions.
We will follow it down.
Thank you.
The other side concerning
access, A-Ride, and accessible transit in New York. That's the hearing that we have next week. It's a joint hearing. On the, what day is it, the 20th? When is the hearing? The 20th. That's the hearing that we have. Legislation to be considered in the near future to review the size of the city fleet 25% over 5 years by imposing car sharing program to reduce emissions, to require plan to implement both the BRT, bus rapid transit in New York City, and to increase safety along truck route for drivers and pedestrians. That's why some of this idea that we have revision. I have a lot of respect for being working with our board president, and we just want to continue working together. Life is not about how we enter in government, but it's how we exit in government. And I think that the most important thing is about what is the legacy. And I want to be one of those that working together, we can say in the future, when we are not in government anymore, we will be able to improve transportation. We have to improve how fast we move in our city, but also we have to continue working to improve safety in our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Many questions were asked during the presentation. We'll take maybe one or two questions.
Yeah, I want to say, re-emphasize again the importance, and I want to thank our NYPD and Transit so far for keeping our subways safe. And almost every single line comes through Community Board 1, and it's a top priority. So anything we can do to help you along that lines would be really important. We'd hate to see another Spanish, incident that happened in Spain. Second, in terms of your yellow livery, black cars, and downtown, we already have a huge congestion problem. It's 1.45 square miles. We have 95 construction projects going on. So anything you can do to minimize the impact of construction in our area, making sure that they're not queuing up and idling, it's a huge issue. And then the third thing, I hope there's something to focus also on bike lanes, and because that's one of the prongs of public transit. So for example, in the South Street Seaport, which is an area that's still impacted by Superstorm Sandy, it's hard to get there, and we have people from CD2 who's asked, can we improve the bike lanes in CD1 because he bikes from CD2 into CD1.
Great, we will follow that.
Yeah, Vicky, I think you have your hand up.
No.
Then Gigi, okay,
Sure.
Gigi.
So the Lower East Side is one of those transportation deserts, and one of the issues that was just recently raised is that the environmental review, where it triggers a need for additional transportation infrastructure and capacity, that threshold is very high. So at Essex and Delancey, we have a 2 million square foot development, 1,000 new units of housing, and we have 2 bus lines and the JMZ. And it did not trigger a need for the developers to look at the increasing of public transportation infrastructure, and 100 of those units are senior housing units, and they're not going to go sub 2 levels at Essex Delancey to get the JMZ, right? So that's something that was raised that we're going to try to take on, but I think I just want to put it on your radar, that large scale developments, as they happen throughout Manhattan, that transportation is something that really needs to get looked at, because as the legislation and environmental review process currently stands, the threshold is way too high to get developers to require them to invest in it.
I think that's a good question in general, because I can tell you how many bus lines, you can't keep this bus line going because there aren't enough people on it. Well, it's not reliable, so why in the world should anybody go on?
That's right.
So, you have, it's like it's a chicken and
Catch
the egg
22,
problem.
It's a problem with the Broadway bus too, because there's so much construction.
And the crosstown on the M42, which I'm just pissing me off.
Right.
So, I think the issue of threshold is something, it's a small, minute issue, but it has huge impact, something to think about, and they don't look at seniors at all.
Right.
So we follow, and Lucas is, our legislative director, and working with you, and it's like, let's be sure that we follow.
We have to move on. So
Yeah,
quickly.
I want to applaud what you're doing. This is wonderful. Thank you very, very much. And you were at the Vision Zero symposium and you talked about split phase, and I wanted to ask you, what else are you going to do about split phase? This is a tool which is very, very important and very useful to reduce pedestrian death, especially on two-way street when people make a left turn. And it seems that the DOT is still very reluctant to use that tool. And so even in places, recently we just received a report from the DOT which says 57 and 8 is the most dangerous in all of the city, and they didn't put a split phase. So it seems that we have a disconnect between, if this is the most dangerous intersection in the whole city right now, how are we going to get Vision Zero if we don't apply the right tool? And so I don't know what can be done.
Okay, let's follow.
Yeah, because we need to follow up. We need to follow up and say why, when there is a very dangerous intersection on a two-way street, why don't we go ahead and do it?
Let's have a meeting.
Yes.
Let's have a meeting. I would say I'm committed to have a meeting. DOT, we can go together with you, other members of the community, even though that problem doesn't affect only your community.
No, it's along, and for example, 57th Street is like, they have 3 intersections on 57th Street, which are the most dangerous, right? Nothing. No.
We'll follow up. I know we've written a lot of letters over.
Right. So I think we need to get serious about that, because that would get the number lower so much faster.
I would take that's one of my priorities. So
thank you so much.
You, Board President, and DOT.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll resume community board report.
We'll have the PowerPoint accessible.
Yes, I'll make sure to get all the contacts for all the chairmen.
Or you can just
send it to you. Okay. Distribute it. Great. Thanks. I'll send it to you later.
We'll resume with community board 6.
Okay. Thank everyone. I wanted to thank everyone for actually voting in favor of the conditional disapproval of the Vanderbilt project. I think this is really something that we're moving in the right direction for. And along those lines, we've actually been doing an outstanding job with our neighboring community boards, as well as some of our local elected officials and some of the agencies, and actually doing public outreach and doing real community engagement. So we've actually, as you heard earlier, been working on the Rebuild by Design project, and I wanted to also thank Gigi for really taking the lead in a complicated meeting that we had earlier in the month. We actually did the kickoff meeting for the Rebuild by Design Big U project as it comes from, well, yeah, all right, so.
We're calling it the East Side Coastal Recovery Program.
Yeah, it's gotten wordier.
Yes.
I can't remember it. So there's so this is from Montgomery Street to 23rd Street, and so we're breaking out into 2 actionable areas, I guess, because there's a difference between the waterfront, between these 2 areas, both politically, I guess, since our boundaries are there, but also geologically and the way the waterfront kind of curves and has landfill and other obstacles that we have to overcome. So it's Montgomery Street to 14th Street, and then 14th Street to 23rd Street. And Gigi and I are working closely with the stakeholders to try to get them all engaged and really do public meetings, charrettes, and really outreach to people who have not been engaged in the process previously. We're doing the same sort of thing actually with the sanitation garage, which I'm sure everyone recalls because I bring this up almost every month, I think. So East 25th Street, a couple of years ago, sanitation, of course, put forth a plan to build a garage for the rolling stock of 6A, 8-3, I think, part of it. And so now with the help of Councilman Grodnick and I believe the borough president and perhaps even a couple other elected officials that I'm forgetting to name. Kavanaugh, thank you. Of course, Brian was instrumental in that too. We are actually putting together a task force / steering committee. I don't know what the current terminology is, but we're kind of redoing the same process that we did at the community board, where we had a visioning process with some community stakeholders and trying to look at alternatives. Talking really fast because I know we're over. So now we're kind of expanding that to some of the institutions and some of the other stakeholders that we are, kind of a broader scope to look at the next few months, just like Rebuild by Design, and actually come out with some alternatives that are really contextually appropriate for the community and are not just a garage. So thanks again for that. There's also, just the last thing I want to mention is where I'm very excited because we also, I think, have probably, I think across the city, but definitely in Manhattan, the lowest per person acreage in the entire borough. So I think we have 1 acre for every 5,237 people, rather, 5,237 people, which is,
Who's counting?
yeah, which is almost like triple, I think, what the rest of the districts have. And we're having a ribbon cutting for the Astor Levy Park, which used to be the Astor Levy Place, but now we've expanded the recreation and playground area, and now it's Astor Levy Park. So that's actually the 11 a.m. On the 30th of this month. So everyone, of course, is invited. I don't think I'm going to see a lot of people because it's going to be cold, but we're going to be there anyway, and we'll be extremely excited to open some new public space.
Thank you for that report. Community Board 7?
Sure, just a few things. We have had a lot of conversations in the community and on the board about illegal hotels. I saw that there's, I think this is something that's gonna come through Borough Board next month, or it was gonna be discussed for February. I mean, I agree with whichever chair said that we weren't ready to sort of have that discussion yet. We've had our December housing meeting. We had a meeting with the Share Better Coalition, and I know they've spoken to us back in October. But we did feel very strongly as a board that we wanted to hear from the other side. I was very pleased that the actual global head of public affairs for Airbnb came to our meeting on Monday night. And regardless of how you feel about Airbnb, the fact that he came up from DC and made himself available for the 2 hours was very thorough. People, you may want to call him a spin doctor, but I thought he did a very good job of answering every single community question. I would encourage anyone who wants to hear from Airbnb to talk to him. His name is David Hantman. He's happy to come to any community board meeting to talk. I think one of the things that came out of that discussion was that they feel very strongly that they are different from illegal hotels. I think they got some, he certainly learned a lot from hearing from CB7 members about exactly why they disagree with his statements so much. The plan for all of this is for the Housing Committee to put forth a resolution at their February Housing Committee meeting for a vote at the March full board meeting. So that's like our timeline for the discussion. But we did have 2 separate meetings on it, and I think that it actually worked very well, and the discussion was very positive. And again, it's a really complicated issue. It's something that we tried to get as much out of them that was factual that we could in terms of data and other things, and that it was tough, but I think they realize what they're up against as they walk into the January 20th. I think there's a council hearing on illegal hotels, and on Airbnb will be represented there. So I would encourage people to talk to both groups and have them at your committee meetings. The Inclusive Playground Task Force that we have been working on at the Bloomingdale Playground resumes, and their next meeting is January 27th. That's been a great interdisciplinary effort involving a lot of stakeholders in the upper part of our district, which has been great, but we hope it will be something that will spread citywide in terms of inclusivity for people who have various challenges, both physical and developmental challenges on city playgrounds. We had a really interesting issue related to street renamings come up just this past week that has happened at CB7 before, and I'd be curious offline to hear how people have handled it on their boards. Basically, we had a resident who was not particularly well-known globally or nationally, but was very well-known. He was a political consultant in our neighborhood. It was a stretch, West 67th Street, which has had a history of world-famous artists and people from Lincoln Center, everyone from Norman Rockwell to Salvador Dali, Victor Navaski, David Halberstam, and many community residents came out basically trying to argue that those people's lives were more important than this political consultant, and how dare somebody actually suggest that the street should be renamed after somebody who wasn't a household name. So what turned into, I think the board very much felt that, the street should remain West 67th Street, but no one person's life was really, it's really hard for any of us to say like who is more meritorious of a street renaming, and that traditionally has been, but the procedural issue, how we handled it was that as opposed to voting, having it come through the committee and actually voting it down, which would have been voted down, we encouraged, and the applicant decided to withdraw it. So and we suggested sort of maybe a plaque, or perhaps because this political consultant did most of his work in Midtown, having something at his office in Midtown where there could be some sort of memorial to him. But I was actually, to be honest, quite surprised at the number of people who came out and had this discussion about merits with people.
Surprised. but.
I wasn't surprised, but I was I was
would-
actually very disappointed, to be honest with you, that people feel that way in my neighborhood and felt that it was
Well,
not.
I can understand, but it was hysterical, you saw, I got all the emails too.
Yeah.
I always thought West 67th Street was the most frightening block in New York because of the intellectual capacity on that one block. That entire, whoever, I don't even know who suggested it, but I would be afraid to walk down the block if I was them.
Right. Well, I lived on the block for 10 years. I lived in the cinder block high rise that I'm sure they all hated that got built in the 60s. And so I've always been persona non grata on that block to begin with.
It's a very scary block.
It is a scary block. So in any event, our next B2B is going to be in early March, the first week of March. We've been to parks related issues. You may have read about the expansion of the Museum of Natural History. We are convening a task force to deal with that. It's going to be a multi-year project. Obviously, it's going to extend, affect a lot of different just neighbors, transportation, land use, preservation, the whole works. We're very pleased, and thank you to Borough President and a lot of community people who rallied against over the years the Fashion Week sort of taking over what is a public park. People don't think that it's a public park, but it is a public park. It is now being returned to being a public park, and we're very excited about that news as well. So that's it for me.
Thank you.
Great.
At last night's land use meeting, we unanimously approved the zoning text amendment on stairwells. The Roosevelt Island Cornell Tech project's groundbreaking will be January 28th. We're all looking forward to that. An engineering school is going to start there. Every month looks better and better along the 2nd Avenue subway corridor. Slowly but surely all the trucks are disappearing and it's becoming cleaner and quieter and no more blasting. And these huge structures called muck houses as part of the construction project are all being taken away.
Wow.
So things are getting better and better, and 75% complete. It was announced by the MTA, and it should roll in December of 2016, the first phase. So that's all good news. On a sad note, we had a long-term community board member, Terry Slater, pass away earlier in the week. Her knowledge of historic preservation and zoning was encyclopedic, and she'll be very missed. And we'll have a tribute for her at next week's full board meeting.
I think the wake is tomorrow.
Yes, the wake is tomorrow at the Campbell Funeral Home from 5 to 7, and then the funeral is on Saturday at 12:30 at St. Ignatius Loyola Church.
Thank you, Fred. Community board now?
We're having our we're having a presentation this evening in terms of the illegal hotels. And we are also trying to get a group. We have a group of community members who are seeing some benefit and are now speaking out and saying that, you know, the city and nobody should regulate what they do with their homes. So I'm trying to get them to get themselves together, and rather than sending letters individually, to come as a group and let's really talk about this at our housing committee meetings. So our housing chair is going to continue to try to work together to bring them out. We should be able to, we'll be ready for the vote on March or even in February if it comes to that. But I think, have we all conceded that March would be the vote? Yep.
I'm thinking that seems to be the consensus. of the
Okay,
board.
good. That would be
We're gonna
perfect.
ready by February.
Okay.
Go through the committees and the full board.
We're also putting back on the table the rezoning of Morningside Heights area, because one of the concerns we have now is that we will be faced with the same situations in Morningside Heights that we've seen in CB 7, and especially with the sale of 4 buildings by St. Luke's Hospital. So we are really, city planning did not accept the proposal from us 2 years ago in terms of that rezoning. So we'll probably be reaching out to the borough president to help us to support that. We are really putting in safety measures in our area right now. We are looking at putting in new safety measures on Riverside Drive from 116th to 135th, And we met with DOT and MTA Tuesday night, and that seems like it's really going to be a really great proposal that we see. We are still working because in our district we have a lot of HDFCs that have not converted and a lot of TIL buildings. So our housing committee is really focused right now on helping to get 640, 644 Riverside Drive through the process. And it's just sort of unfolding with layers and layers. Seems like the contractor who was supposed to do all the repairs has sort of run away. So we're really going to focus in on that and try to make sure that we get that building through the process this year, at least by next year. It's been a decade. We're also involved in air monitoring in our community because we have so much transportation that is moving, but we have so much congestion now and so much idling along Amsterdam Avenue and Broadway. And so we have finally began to get something from our dealings with the Columbia University and our community benefits agreement. So we've been able to get an engineer to help with reading some of the monitoring equipment that we've had some questions about the accuracy of that. So hopefully we'll be putting out a report as to how accurate the monitoring of air quality in the area of our sewage treatment and other areas of congestion will be. And I'm sort of feeling like I don't want to hold everybody up. So I think that's, and we continue to work with Columbia University. You know, we're getting ready to go into the second phase of construction. So that's going to continue to be a fight in terms of MWBE and equity in hiring. And we're also really cheering for the Obama Library. We're hoping that we will get that.
They came to our education committee. It was so interesting hearing about that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
There was an article that was posted in the Chicago Times, I think, Observer, one of their papers. I think that the writer was trying to galvanize support in Chicago, and so she wrote up her article in a way that makes it appear that we're not supportive, that she talked to people who said, oh, the library will be all about gentrification. We've already been gentrified, and so now we've got to look at how we continue to have some economic relief in our community. And one of the things that the library will do will enhance the culture, the history, and enhance economics for some of our small businesses in that area.
And there was an article that in Chicago there was a zoning issue
Yes.
that made New York more likely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick, one of the things we're always bombarded by people in our board meetings complaining about all the SLA licenses that we are basically not approving but are supporting. And we did some study and we realized that because of all the churches in our community, most of those establishments are either getting wine and beer or not at all because every other door is a church. So we are really under capacity, so we want to educate the community about that there could be much more, but because of all the churches in our community, there are not a lot of licenses, full licenses.
We're looking to build churches in our
Right,
area.
okay, we'll do that.
We might start advocating
The other
too.
thing is, tonight at our land use committee, we have invited the new owners of the Harlem Renaissance building, the property there, because what has happened, Community Board 10, they came to us some time ago, ADC, which is Abyssinia Development Corp., came to us some time ago, and they said they were gonna do some development there, and they were gonna do some community benefits, but something through the back door, it was taken out, the application was taken off of the landmark, the application was pulled, then it was sold to a new developer, and this developer is getting ready to demolish it, and as you know, Michael Henry Adams, he is our star preservationist in our community, and all the communities really. he has a protest every Sunday outside of Renaissance, not to demolish it. So right now, I think they're trying to get a meeting with you also, and Brian Benjamin will be on that, with that meeting, so that we can do something, I mean, see what we can do, but they're coming tonight, so just we can talk to the new developers to see just what we can do, not so much about saving the demolition, but hey, what can we get back? I mean, it's something, if you could leave a facade or something to keep in mind the Renaissance, so that we're there. Police officer Fidelio, 40, 50 years ago, a police officer was killed in a mosque. There was it was a whole lot back and forth. And for years and years, this has been something that has kept coming back to our board. They want to do a street co-naming at this police officer. And it's just been coming back, and it's been a constant fight with the police department, members of the police department, even though we love our 28th precinct. But this is 40 years ago, or 40, 50 years ago. So there's been this constant pushing back. I was so happy to see about a month and a half ago that they codenamed a street in this police officer's neighborhood. Which makes more sense because many people don't know him in the community today, and plus it's this big battle. So we were really glad to know that this was renamed or in another community, and hopefully that settles that. We would like to send a letter to them thanking them, for the service or something, just to let them know that we definitely support this person. However, it was hard for us to support naming this with our
Is this within your
so
board?
we got it. Okay, raccoons.
Please.
Where did they come from?
Send them to CB1.
Okay, Department of Health is saying that individuals are responsible for trapping these raccoons.
Jessica, can you address this or not?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's what Department of Health says, but they also said that they were gonna go investigate to make sure that there weren't any rabid raccoons, and they said they were sending a team, and we haven't come back yet, but we'll follow up. And then we also asked DC, because the State Department is actually responsible for wildlife in the city, so we also have a letter to them, and we just need to follow up.
We'll send you copies.
Okay, that'd be perfect.
She doesn't have any of
If
the
I can
copies.
get that, because we're getting lots of folks. So basically, those are the main things right now, okay? Thank you so much.
11. So a couple quick things. Community Board 11 lost a former member of our board, a longtime member, Monica Brown, who was very dear to me when I was 22 on Community Board 11. She said, "Matthew, I see that you will be the chair of this board one day." And when I was 26 years old, she voted for me and helped me win, become chair of the board, and so she was very special. Her services were on the day after Christmas, and I was with family, and I couldn't attend, but I want to thank the borough president for being there and for honoring someone who's very special to me and to our community. So I want to thank you for that, too. Absolutely wonderful. A couple of other things in terms of illegal hotels. I also want to thank the borough president for comments here. At the end of December, an article came out where there was an illegal hotel in a Section 8 apartment where there were bunk beds put up in rooms, and they were selling for $199 a night. One of the rooms had 6 bunks in it, so you can do the math. And the rent on the apartment was $1,000, so one night. And one of the three bedrooms, one room had 6 beds. It was a 3-bedroom apartment. So those sorts of things are horrible and terrible, and a real shame because someone could really use an affordable unit in this city. And so those sorts of things are disgusting, and so working to get rid of that sort of activity. It particularly hits close to home when it's an affordable housing unit. And so dealing with that, so Liz, any work that you guys are doing or others, we certainly want to be a part of that. Also, I'll skip a couple things, but did want to just talk very briefly about IDNYC, the municipal ID. I think it's an interesting opportunity, but having a substantial undocumented population in our community, there are also still a lot of concerns about IDNYC, security of information. The administration has said it will be secure, but people are still concerned about it. For those who are not concerned, I certainly encourage you to apply and get a municipal ID. Certainly for the access to the 33 CIGs is fantastic. But it's an ongoing issue, an ongoing matter. I am disappointed the city council has scheduled a Manhattan conversation for IDNYC on Tuesday, January 20th, which is the same night as Community Board 11's full board meeting. And this meeting is happening 2 blocks away, and I just think it's a shame that they didn't coordinate since it's in our community and it's a big issue for our community. So I did send a note to them to say that I'm disappointed that they did that, so hopefully others will express the same sentiment. But I think it's an important issue to stay on top on for all of us to pay attention to what's happening there. And then lastly, one happy quick note, one of our board members is trying to create an El Barrio Walk of Fame on 106th Street, similar to out in Los Angeles and Hollywood, but just honoring those who've been in and a part of East Harlem throughout the year. So it's something that we're looking into to see and having conversation with DOT. So that's my report. I hope it was brief enough.
No, fabulous.
Thank you.
And could I also just chime in on the fact that if we could get any help with the council members not having, we have sent out a notice asking groups not to have such significant meetings the same night as general board. Thank you.
Community Board 12, George?
Good morning, everyone, and I apologize for my delay. I had to report to work first and then be released. Happy New Year's to everyone. I hope everyone had a blessed holiday.
Thank you.
Just quickly, I'd like to inform you that I've been reelected from my 3rd consecutive term as chairman of the board. I'm joined by, thank you. Oh my God. I'm joined by Betty Lehman. Some of you know her. She is our recently elected secretary of Community Board 12. Obi Bing was here, but he had to leave. He's our 1st vice chair. Aldemar Diaz is our newly elected 2nd vice chair, and Pamela got elected as treasurer again. Everybody knows Pamela. And Liliana Sanux is the assistant secretary, so we're excited about that team. Just quickly, I wanted to raise, in regards to the illegal hotels, my housing committee will be addressing that, but Richard Lewis is kind of sick, but that's going to be on the agenda for February. The substations, I had a question around that. I know we got notice about that. Has that been discussed, or is there a timeline? Did I miss the beat on that one?
No, you haven't.
Okay, because Obi being engineer, used to work for Con Ed, have him looking into all the data of that. He quickly expressed to me that that's a concern, to have substations out in the open. Given the fact that historically Con Edison wanted to isolate substations, now they want to put substations out in the open. So there's some concern about that. Quickly, intro 585, term limits for board members. I haven't heard, but when I brought it up in my executive yesterday, people, or on Tuesday, yes, people were very, they need more time to talk about it, to digest
I'm
it.
just saying the borough president is all writing a letter against it.
Yeah, we submitted your position, and I told everybody
Put it
that,
together,
yes, that the borough president is in opposition of this. They wanted more time, but what is our timeline to respond to you?
Well, you've received the resolution.
We have the resolution, we talked
We're
about
thinking
it.
around the same time, around March.
About March,
Okay,
okay.
good.
March, okay, now quickly, the vision for 2015, Community Board 12, we're gonna be focusing on programs and services deeply, for, not agencies, local community-based organizations that are getting funding to provide services. They all operate around this thing on units or something like that, and money, and when they run out of their slots.
Units of appropriation.
Yes, but the thing about it is that like they don't know who's providing services next door. So if they run out of slots, what we're trying to do is bring them all together in one room so they can know each other. So if I don't have services for you, well, I can send them to you. This way we can all work together to provide programs and services. We are gonna be moving on having a public hearing or forum on infrastructure. Also, with the executive action from Obama on immigration, as you know, within Community District 12, we have 73% immigrant background, and we're gonna be working with, closely with Northern Manhattan Coalition for Immigrant Rights. It's a concern, the fraudulent act, of people taking advantage of those individuals with of immigrant background. Also, we have a 14% unemployment rate, and we're pushing hard for workforce development, and that's something that we're very concerned about, and we really would like to see opportunities where there's bilingual, vocational opportunities, and we know that immigrants come from their countries with skills already. I don't know why they gotta come here and be put through the ringer, 2 years of school and everything just to get a job. We need to focus on occupations that doesn't require technical language. There's like electricity, or red wire is a red wire. And that should be done to enhance or decrease our unemployment rate. So that's something I'm focused on. We are working with Councilmember Rodriguez in regards to the discussion around the rezoning of the Sherman Creek. That's something that's very dear to us, is affordable housing, and we continue to advocate for that. But in closing, I want to thank the borough president for your letter to Landmarks. telling them to stop this decalendaring of these 96 sites. that they-
Oh, yes.
And they did, so we
did,
applaud
bravo.
you for that, thank you so much. But, and I'd like to thank all my colleagues here and everyone for the great work that you do to advocate for our community, so God bless you and be well.
Thank you. Borough President?
I'll be very quick, and I really appreciate the lens that you guys are, I know people are working life, I'll be very fast. Number one, just in terms of some of the things that we're doing, much thanks to Aldrin that the community board applications are online. And also that, thanks to the, capital staff and budget staff, that those applications are available. We're getting swamped with people who want capital money and they deserve it, so just make sure that you let people know. The state of the borough is gonna be February 8th. It's going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at Columbia University. Again, there's material on the desk out there when you go. I hate these things, but we have to do them. We're doing, the teen community board information. You know only too well how we're working on young people to apply. Thank you, Gigi, for, the first. 16, 17-year-olds. So there's one on, this location right here on the 23rd of January at 4:30. Again, I'm hoping that young people apply, and then those who get on, great. Those who don't, we'll try to make sure that they're still involved. Because if anybody's gonna show up, that means that they're interested. We're doing in Washington Heights at Alianza, the Triangle Building, on the 26th from 6 to 8, a community police relations dialogue. It's very structured. Again, the deputy borough president is involved. It includes tables and people talking to each other, not an open forum where people could say things that would be not appropriate in some cases.
Where was that, I'm sorry?
That's gonna be at the, community police, it's gonna be at the Alianza Triangle Building at 5:30 West 166th Street. It's on the table out there.
Wait, what date?
That is gonna be the 26th of January, 6 to 8 p.m. We know earned in tax, we're working with the city on the PITC, earned income tax credit. They're doing it at Hunter College on the 31st of January, 11 to 5, a full day on the issue of EITC and other things, tax credits that families can get. We're also, on schools, we met with the superintendents here at this table, and now we're gonna meet with the principals again. We keep reinforcing the fact that they need to be involved and figure out. That will be on capitals, what we're gonna meet with the principals on. And then in addition, we met with the superintendents on all their issues. The biggest issue is technology. Even though I'm the one that brings it up, then what is coming into the school is not fast enough. It's that simple. We can get lots of computers, we can get all the software, we can do the training, but if that pipe comes, I've been talking about this for 20 years. If the pipe coming in is too slow, then what are we doing? So we're gonna work on that. Nobody seems to have a list of what capacity is at what school. So just so you know, I'm on it, trying to figure that out. Yes, George, I can see you.
And just quickly, because the council member, you know, he said this thing about the hookah. Any chance our fearless leader, the borough president, can push legislation on K2? I mean, K2, it's the synthetic.
Right. I hear you, okay.
And just also.
Yes.
I got it.
We have a resolution on that.
Okay.
And just in reference to meeting with the superintendents, I as a parent, and thank God I have a job, what I find disturbing is that when I was growing up and went to school, they provided all the supplies, just about. But today, parents who struggle have to get the money somehow.
I know.
It's like, it costs me like $500 for my son.
I know. I can't
But
do
then,
it. I hear
yeah, I
you.
just want to raise that because
I know.
another thing is I discovered through the teacher that they have like this budget of $40 for their classroom.
I know.
That doesn't make any sense. If we're going to talk about inequality, education inequality, and all these, I know technology's on the map, but we got to look at the parents, what they can afford.
Okay, I'm just telling, that's the city council, I'm gonna be
Is it?
quiet. Yep. The city
Thank you for the
council- I
guidance.
can tell you, the city council can vote dollars to the teachers, they've done it in the past.
Oh,
That's
city
expense
council?
money, I don't have much expense, I have capital.
Okay,
So
no,
I
no,
can do
thanks
what
for telling me, I
yeah,
appreciate it.
All the, let
City
them do it,
council.
that's them. In terms of other school issues, in March, we have, looking for a date, we're gonna have all the tech people and all the principals, you'll be invited at U2, which will be an exciting venue. I know I've been talking about it, we're actually gonna have an event at U2 with principals, community boards are certainly gonna be invited. Again, just to get the principals knowing who's out there to be able to work with, and we're gonna do the same thing with an art mixer, we've done it at El Museo, and we'll do it somewhere else. So those are the main issues, if there's anything else you wanna add, but I think that's it. Thank you very, very much.
So moved.
Thank you so much.
No objection.
So we're